Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. I'm Defender Emerald, and I cook with Wii remotes. Microplastics? No. Microplastics. I'm gonna be honest, if you had told me 15 years ago that the console that housed the most movie licensed games would end up having its flagship game become a movie licensed game, I would have looked at you like you had 2.5 heads.
The Nintendo Wii is the console that kneecapped the Xbox brand. Oh, and it's a family fun box with parties and cardies and Wii Sports and the most melodramatic Mario game ever created. It has the Virtual Console, the worst Smash Brothers of all, and brought joy that could be heard all throughout the hall. And in between, there were 2 Zeldas, a new Donkey Kong, the Metroid Prime trilogy, Kirby got strung along, Pikmin got perfected, and Bully showed up for some utterly arbitrary reason. A really fun version of Resident Evil 4, a pile of shovelware 10 feet off the floor, and me-starring titles full of minigames galore. And it was all capped off by a trio of Nepo babies that even Gadd tried to stop from coming to America. Needless to say, the Wii had games. But there are 2 games I neglected to mention there. The big ones. Or rather, the big one and its vestigial younger sibling. I am, of course, referring to My Sims Kingdom.
Nah, I'm just kidding, you know the one I'm talking about.
Mario in space. Not since the Paper Mario series has this idea been done, and unlike those, this focuses more on bringing out the whimsical platforming extravaganza that comes from entering the stratosphere. But before I tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. The year is 2000. A young MJ had just finished his fetus era, and Nintendo was trying to course correct from the nosediving hypothetical known as the 64DD. The big moment was the reveal of Project Dolphin, the only genuine development Nintendo Hardware Evolution would have until the release of the Switch in 2017. Project Dolphin, eventually referred to as my beloved son the GameCube, debuted alongside a tech demo known as Super Mario 128, a simple experiment displaying Brooklyn plumber population booming and various physics nonsense.
If I had told you that idea turned into Pikmin, would you believe me? It didn't, but would you believe me?
Needless to say, the whimsical terrain-morphing physics wouldn't be implemented into the next 3D Mario game, Super Mario Sunshine, because the good Lord Jesus decided we'd need to wait another decade for that. So, in between the trailer and 07, we got Mario doing a Seal impression and the game that single-handedly birthed the E10 rating. But, on the big stage at E3 2006, we saw, admittedly, a kinda underwhelming trailer. It had the space theme, it had the motion controls, the gravity mechanics, kinda, but that was really it. It just seemed like the next big Mario game. Now, to be fair, after the development hell that Mario Sunshine went through, seeing something with more solid ideas certainly worked to Galaxy's advantage, but it was missing a certain je ne sais quoi. Unfortunately, we'd soon find out that we'd have to wait a bit longer for the iconic Mario team to share their finished product with the world, with Miyamoto announcing the initial plan of within 6 months of the Wii's release, being thrown back to about a year later in November of 2007. My history with Super Mario Galaxy is a bit on the wonky side. I grew up with it, and Sunshine of course, but this was the one that always kept coming back to me, in spite of my GameCube preferences. I couldn't really explain why. Back in the old days, I wasn't quite the jaded jackass that you see before you today, but there was something intrinsically alluring about it. Which is ironic considering I didn't have an actual case for the game until I was 18. Eventually, I ended up losing that original copy, so when I was 16, I got a copy that had the disc, the manuals, everything, but no case. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a bit of a fan of deep space sci-fi fantasy. Definitely my preferred genre over the swords and sorcery of yesteryear. There's just so much potential out there, and seeing a Mario game all about that, well, it's gonna pique my interest. So without further ado, let's get this show on the Star Road. The story begins at the Star Festival, an event that happens once every 100 years. A simple celebration of astronomical wonder and honoring the power star that came to the Mushroom Kingdom long ago. But, of course, Toad Town peacetime can't last long, so Bowser rips Princess Peach's castle into the sky, blasting Mario out into space in the process, and this is a beat-for-beat plot remake of Paper Mario 64. And the lack of originality continues when we meet the mythical blonde woman from beyond the stars.
Where the hell is Spiritomb?
Right off the bat, this game showcases everything you can expect, including it telling you to jump into a cliff. Don't do that, by the way, you'll get spaghettified. In all seriousness, Gateway Galaxy here is a phenomenal testing ground for the new technology at play. The inverted gravity controls can take some getting used to, but once your brain gets them down, it'll be easy to pick them up.
I, however, am what we in the gaming industry refer to as a bit of a dipstick, so the controls never really launched with me. Don't use my experience as a benchmark, you are worth so much more than that.
Once you hop around collecting these star bunnies, everybody's favorite character, Rosalina, appears and guides you to the first big level of the game, where you've got to run around learning the physical minutiae and doing what Mario does best: splatting Gumba. After that, Mario gets a grand star and flies to the meat and potatoes of the game. My favorite video game hub world, the Comet Observatory. The Comet Observatory is incredible. Sure, it's not as big as Isle Delfino, and navigating it can be a bit obtuse at times, but this place truly feels spectacular. There were a handful of domes situated all over the area, and the more power stars you obtain, the more, well, power comes on all over the place, really adding to the grandiosity and spectacle, as well as being a nice visual indicator of the progress you make in the game. And all of that is accompanied by an elegant soundtrack that sounds more appropriate for ballroom dancing as opposed to flipping and spinning through space. Speaking of spinning and flipping, yes, that is how Mario utilized the Wii's motion controls. Luma-lee, Luma-bop, welcome to the Luma shop.
You're the guy from the movie.
Inside of Mario's soul, I guess, is a little star buddy called a Luma. Lumas are cosmic stardust giving semi-sentient form, and can be transformed into all sorts of things if you feed them extraterrestrial honey candy. But for now, all you need to know is that this one squatting in Oiram's noggin is giving him the ability to spin around as both an attack and as an acrobatic maneuver. Using these Lumas as his erstwhile companions, Mario embarks on an out-of-this-world adventure that sounds like a tagline ripped right off the back of the box.
A Mario adventure of cosmic proportions, you might say.
With that aside, let's talk game structure. Much like prior Mario games, you gotta collect the stars. Sometimes bosses have them, sometimes you're thrown into specific challenges, but for the most part, you're running, jumping, spinning, and pulling off some slick tricks to power the Comet Observatory to take Mario to his special one at the center of the universe. And yes, much like Mario 64, Mario Galaxy is far more open-ended in how you get the Power Stars. Though where Mario 64 required over half and Mario Sunshine had a rigid structure to follow that requires the bizarrely awkward 51 stars to beat the game, Mario Galaxy requires exactly 50%. That's incredibly generous, especially considering some of the one-off galaxies feature mechanics that are far more fiddly than they have any reason to be. But more on that later. For now, the structure goes as follows. Every dome has 2 or 3 main galaxies in it. Each of those galaxies has 3 main missions to go after. Along the way, you can unlock some extra galaxies that hold one slightly tougher challenge each, and then you go fight the boss, usually Bowser or his biological anomaly of a son. Do this 4 or 5 times, and the game goes by like that. But that's not the only way of going about things. Let's move on to a bit of a controversial aspect of Mario Galaxy. Prankster Comets. These offer a variety of different challenges that make you go through previous levels in a new way. Sometimes you can't take damage, sometimes it's under a time limit, sometimes things are faster, sometimes you got Shadow Mario chopping at your dire rear, and then you have absconding with purple coins that someone decided would be a good idea to have a perfectionist run in. Good stuff! Now, some could say that this is an artificial game lengthening mechanic that has no benefit, and they may have a point, but I, for one, like that it adds a bit more variety of power stars to obtain, making that ever so reasonable number 60 seem a little bit more in reach. Although if you do what I did and go after these comets as soon as you have the opportunity, you genuinely don't see half the game until you beat the final boss. I know, that's what getting half the stars probably means to some of you, but trust me, explore everything as you unlock it. It'll be a much more engaging experience that way. So, enough about the drolling analytics. Let's show off some highlights, shall we? How about the first place we see? Good Egg Galaxy. While not the most exciting area, it is a perfect showcase of so many things you can expect from the game. There's plenty of exciting planets demonstrating the wacky gravity mechanics, a few Easter eggs to older games, a crappy boss fight, feeding a star a bunch of candy until it explodes and turns into a new planet, and a bunch of soaring through space with glee in your heart. It really does have it all. But I get it. Okay, yeah, hard sell. You want iconography. Well, look no further than the quirky goodness of Honeyhive, a planet of silly little bees and a queen that speaks like a hive mind. Now, I've always subscribed to the idea that simplicity gives way to joy in all sorts of ways, and Honeyhive is as simple fun as Mario Galaxy gets. However, there's a different kind of depth here. This funny little bee land introduces something that's been sorely missing from 3D Mario. Power-ups. Now, to say they've been entirely absent is just point-blank untrue, but where Mario 64 really only had flight, invisibility, and being steel, Galaxies, I'd say, are much more robust, for better and for worse. Almost all of these power-ups are related to mobility in some way, and interestingly, the dividing line for quality can more or less be boiled down to whether or not it gives you the power of flight. Kicking off the good half, we've got the Bee Suit, a fun little romp where you take to the skies. It can land on clouds and flowers, and can get some pretty solid distance if you know what you're doing. Aside from that, the other big new power-up is Boo Mario, a slow but genuinely fun flight power that gives you the ability to phase through some walls and has to avoid sunlight like the guy who made up this video.
I don't burn, I fry.
Next up is the flower duo, Fire and Ice. While some of you may rejoice at hearing the fire flowers here, it's probably the second worst power-up in the game. The flowers are on a timer, and you throw fire or ice balls by shaking the Wii Remote, and they are real janky. The reason I hold the fire flower in such a low regard is because it feels genuinely unenjoyable to use, and in one particular mission, you have to keep running back and forth to grab it. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the ice flower, which is actually pretty cool. So, much like the fire flower, it's more than a little janky, but this lets you skate over water, and that is surprisingly fun once you get the hang of it. On the note of takes some getting used to, let's talk about the worst damn power-up ever. Spring Mario! I didn't see this until the post-game, but my god does it grind my gears. I don't know why it is this way, but precision platforming is both mandatory and impossible with this thing. You unlock it in Toy Time Galaxy, but the first time I used it was in Beach Ball's Purple Coin mission, and it was miserable. As you can see, it takes a great degree of effort to grab a coin that's literally one step in front of Mario while in this form. So what are the pros? You jump high. That's it. I'm sure to the right person this little power is wonderful, but I just don't see the appeal. And last, and both appropriately and disappointingly least, is the Red Star. It's only used for one single power star that's completely optional if you're not going for 100%, and it's just a shame, man. You go back to Gateway Galaxy, Rosalina tells you that the planet is very special to her, you get to jump into the Red Star and fly around like a lunatic for a while, but it's on a timer and it runs out super quickly, and the background music, as cool as it is, loops every time you get the power up again, and not very well. I'd say this is one of the worst musical moments in Mario Galaxy, but that's just my opinion. The power-up's not fantastic, but it is a fun way of going about things because you really do feel like you're taken to the skies with this one. I just wish you got to use it more often, and it doesn't show up in the sequel at all. Crying shame. These power-ups, should you choose to accept them, help create a Mario game that really is defined by its movement physics and aesthetic value above all else. But when those two things are done so well, and especially when the game is a 3D platformer, is that really so bad? But of course, the Lumas and power-ups aren't your only allies. Introducing Captain Toad, a mainstay now, but looking back you can't help but wonder why. He's by no means a major character, and the Toad Brigade seems to solely exist to give Mario a few spaceships to platform off of, but still, it's a fun little thematic addition to the quest, and there are a few occasions where the levels are designed around them helping out, so I can't be too mad. On the note of things I can't get mad about, Luigi! He pops up from time to time saying that he's found a hidden star in a level you've already been to.
Or he would if you bothered to talk to him, but that one's on me.
My only complaint with the Luigi is that he appears so rarely. You'd think they'd use this format more often, essentially creating a scavenger hunt to find old green Mario based solely off of a photo he sends through the mail. But no, they only do it like 3 times. Crying shame too, because there's a lot of potential there. It really sucks, because this is the first time Luigi has even been in a 3D Mario game. As we know, L was not real in the finished product of 64, and he was busy doing a Bill Murray impression while Mario was cleaning up the most delusional island on Earth. So I guess seeing him here at all is enough? Can't help but wish for a little more, though. I guess you could say he's got me in a trance. Because Bowser doesn't stand a chance when he goes to save the day. Of course, not everything is a complete improvement. Some of the pointer controls feel like they were in that pity-passing graduating class of Super Mario Sunshine. The sling pod in particular feels quite unreasonable considering it doesn't properly show the area you're going to be flying towards. Also, while the camera is pretty solid for the most part, there is a certain jankiness to the sphere walking mechanics. It's most egregious with Bowser's pathfinding and his boss fights, but there are a number of times where moving the stick is going to send Mario in places you didn't even think were possible. Luckily, that by no means ruins the experience, only happens 2 or 3 times throughout the entire game. And, to be fair, it can definitely add to the running into the deep unknown that sci-fi theming seems to do so well, so I'd call that a fairly reasonable exchange. What's much less of a reasonable exchange, however, are the 2 motion control minigame modes, race surfing and ball rolling. They are painful, both spiritually and literally. A lot of people have negative views on the ball rolling, so let's start with the Ray. Full transparency, I think this is the significantly worse of the 2, and it all boils down to the fact that race surfing is timed. These controls are so floaty, especially coupled with the fact that you need to have the Wiimote pointed at the screen while you do it, and if you turn it too much like a key, the flat bastard just yeets itself off the water track into the cold spaghettifying oblivion below. The reason I assume this is the lesser talked about of the 2 is probably because it's only got 2 levels and it got replaced in the sequel, so it can be left in the dustbin of history.
The same cannot be said for the rolling ball levels.
Now, objectively, yes, these are more infuriating solely because they're more plentiful, but there are 2 things that make them substantially less miserable to deal with for me. First and foremost, the music scaling with the speedier rolling adds to both the tension and humor significantly, and it adds this really enjoyable sense of dynamism to the mission. It's super fun. And secondly, and more importantly, you can take your time with the ball, and that makes it so much more gratifying when you get it right, because you can feel the satisfaction of pulling off precise movements with these bad boys. To boil it down simply, when I finish a race surfing level, I silently pray every level I unlock isn't the next race surfing one. When I finish a ball rolling stage, I let out a whoop of satisfaction alongside the sigh of relief. But even still, I'd rather they just not be here at all. So, I'm not making this up at all. When I got to the hardest race surfing and ball rolling stages, I got the race surfing on my first try, and the ball rolling took me 40 minutes. You really can't make this stuff up, folks. But those both pale in comparison to a type of level that's just legitimately unfair. For some reason, the Mario Sunshine sauce must have been out on the lunch buffet one day, and we got the trash levels. These have a problem because they're very notably different to the 2 prior game modes, and this is the most infuriating, because almost everything that goes wrong is solely because of how long it takes for bob-ombs to go boom. The first one in Battle Rock Galaxy is fairly reasonable, just throw the bobs at the marked spots on the ground and take care of the trash. It's quite a bit finicky, but it should only take a couple of tries. The real problem is the second serving. Dreadnought Galaxy's garbage dump flips this on its head slightly, requiring you to blow up around the marks on the ground. And it takes 7 to 10 seconds for a bomb to do its thing, so if you whiff a throw, you're doing the whole thing all over again. This sucks. No 2 ways about it. Because it seems no matter how good you think you are at handling these little guys, there's always that little iota of RNG that can just tell you to do it again. It's persnickety, I think the safe for television word would be. I'd also like to state for the record that I pulled off the Dreadnought Galaxy garbage dump mission on my second attempt at a sheer dumb luck. For sake of reference, this was the only mission in the entire galaxy that took me less than 40 minutes. Needless to say, while Super Mario Galaxy is infinitely more refined and better designed than Super Mario Sunshine, I must confess, when this game clunks out, this game clunks the hell out. That gravity system, while not vomit-inducing like its modern contemporaries, is still very much an experimental technology, and there are a number of times where the controls get particularly wonky. As for other complaints, well, I can think of a few. Gusty Garden Galaxy kinda sucks ass. In a complete contradiction of its music and its atmosphere, the missions are kinda mindless, ironically except for the Purple Coin Challenge. Speaking of, Purple Coin missions, they suck. And the bizarre thing is that they all suck for completely unique reasons. There are two good ones. Good Egg Galaxy and Gusty Garden Galaxy, which were the first and last ones I did. Did that play a factor?
I don't know.
Honorable mention goes to Deep Dark Galaxy for being a pretty fun scavenger hunt if you know what you're doing, and even if you don't, it's pretty easy to parse where everything might be. Genuinely pretty fun as long as you turn your brain off and just do it. As for the other ones, you have situations like Honeyhive, Sea Slide, and Beach Bowl, which are wide open and tedious for no reason. Beach Bowl being particularly egregious for just barely utilizing the mostly water-filled level, as well as requiring Spring Mario for no good reason. Then you've got Ghostly Galaxy, which times you to grab 100 in a minute and get back to the star, but it's a Pulsar obstacle course. I kinda dig it, honestly. On the other hand, you have the aforementioned Dreadnought Galaxy, which is a slow auto-scroller where it's stupidly easy to get sucked into the void. I followed some Game Facts advice for this one, and it still took me an hour. I hate this level. But all of that, all of it combined, is still nothing compared to the most miserable level in Super Mario Galaxy. If you know this game, you know this well. A level so egregious, it's even labeled with Mr. L. Luigi's Purple Coins. This is precision platforming at its worst. There are a lot of levels that are more punishing, such as Melty Molten's Daredevil run, but this one sucks because the margin of error is ridiculously slim. The only time I game overed in this entire playthrough was when I blitzed through 22 lives like a wood chipper on this stupid purple coin mission. There's long jumping galore, spinning panels that have absolutely whack physics to them, and the whole trick of this is that you need to be aware of where you walk because the Luigi panels disappear beneath your feet. But the spinny ones are so much more broken that you kind of forget about that. So if you want to go through as diligently as possible, congrats, bucko, you don't have a way back to the star. Also, this is just kind of a side here, but to those of you who remember this level, do you remember that it's timed? It's a surprisingly generous time limit too, all things considered, but it's just that extra middle finger hat-on-a-hat garbage that pushes this level into the depths of insanity. There is one last complaint I have, and this is more general. The boss fights in this game, with the exception of Bouldergeist, suck. All of them. The only times I ever had to retry a boss fight were on the runs where you can't take damage. Otherwise, all complete jokes. But that's a tale as old as time when it comes to Mario Galaxy. There's one last detail I want to throw in as fuel for this fire. Bowser. Old King Koopa is kind of notorious for having terrible boss fights in this game, mostly because they lack any real strength or tension, but considering you whipped a nay-nade on him in Mario 64 and just overwhelmed him with the power of your sexy vacationing Italian ass and sunshine, a lack of stakes is something I've grown to accept. No, my problem with Bowser's boss fights is that they are actually broken. The concept is honestly pretty cool. You have to dodge his shockwaves and fireballs before he jumps into the sky and ground pounds, and you're supposed to jump out of the way when he does this so he burns his own ass.
Infuriating when it happens to Mario, hilarious when it happens to Bowser.
Plus, when he's on fire, the orchestral chorus swells, and I swear they're singing the word hot. Bowser's running around and you have to spin into him to knock him down a peg. The problem is that at a certain point, due to what I can only describe as Mario having a repellent magnet installed inside of his noggin, Bowser becomes damn near impossible to hit. He runs around in this bizarre egg-like circle, always avoiding the portly plumber like the plague. This is infuriating, and I don't know how to fix this beyond sheer dumb luck. Every other problem, barring slight dabbles of wonky gravity, is optional. You can skip Luigi's coins, Spring Mario, the literal garbage missions, all of it. You are required to fight Bowser multiple times to beat the game. And he pulls this crap every single time. In no uncertain terms, screw that. Give me an orchestrated tennis match with King Caliente and Wii Sports instead.
I'm not showing that, man. The fried calamari kicked my ass.
Okay, we've talked about all the problems I have with this game, and I've kept teasing you long enough. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The one thing Mario Galaxy excels at that almost no Mario game, or hell, games in general, have matched. This is one of the greatest soundtracks ever devised. While Koji Kondo's work is iconically brilliant as ever, the unique, grandiose score is actually the result of the game's director, Yoshiaki Koizumi, urging composer Mahito Yokota to make something more cool and bombastic. Allegedly, Yokota's original plan was something more cute for the kid audience, which was going to have a focus on Latin American compositions and instruments. Now, to be fair, hearing that as a potential option that we lost out on is kinda disappointing, and I'd really love to see what this would have been like. But listen to what we got instead. There is so much incredible music in this game. Big, bombastic, orchestral, knowingly camp, funny, sweet, intimate. It's all brilliant, performed by a 50-person orchestra, and it makes you feel something, man. Mario 64's music is iconic to be sure. Mario Sunshine's the music I'm most nostalgic for, but this right here is an absolute masterclass in composition and performance, and I heavily urge you to look into it as soon as you can. You're damn near guaranteed to find something that'll resonate with you. I mentioned it before, but I do find it fascinating that Gusty Garden became the representative music when the level itself just kinda sucks. But that's fine, because the music just elevates it that much. You're floating on dandelions and battling a giant mole while there's a worm eating through apples in the sky. But here's a symphonic bliss that the world nowadays simply couldn't be without. Godspeed. Now, if I were forced to pick a favorite level, well, that's honestly way tougher than you might think, but I think I'd have to say Melty Molten Galaxy. The music is fantastic, the atmosphere is sublime, the levels themselves are both engaging and challenging, even if the Daredevil run is a bit on the demanding side. And I'll say the best single moment in the entire game is right here, when Mario flies away from the erupting volcano, surrounded by star bits and the universe at large. This one feels like the perfect world to go to right before the final boss. And the Windows X penis of the background of the level dome does nothing but add to the experience. There is, however, one last thing to talk about before the end, and that is a bit of an issue I wasn't sure how to broach. This is Rosalina, the big character of Super Mario Galaxy. She lets Mario use the Comet Observatory to travel the universe chasing Bowser, but that's all you really get on the surface. She really is a character that deserves to have some mystery to her.
And I seem to be the only person who thinks so.
Outside of the RPGs, Rosalina has appeared just as, if not more frequently, than a number of other characters introduced before her. And they know they struck gold with this character design. She's been in Smash Bros., she was playable in the original version of Mario 3D World, and has been in every party and cart since her debut. I do really enjoy this character, but there was always something greater about her beyond the normal Mario cast, and it's a shame that she's so overexposed now, because this game did something really special with her. Alright, so this right here is going to be your spoiler warning. I know this is a Mario game, but trust me, if you don't want to hear Rosalina's backstory, I would advise turning off the video now and going about your business. Thanks for everything, like, subscribe, etc., etc. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. As for the rest of us, let's talk about the storybook. Over the course of the game, you'll get notifications that you've unlocked new chapters of something called the storybook. For a while, you might not get what that means, but if you stop by this little nook in the bookshelf, you'll see Rosalina reading a storybook to the Lumas. And this is the icing on top of the Mario Galaxy cake. This story tells of a little girl who found a Luma and decided to take to the stars and help the Luma find its mother. And over the course of their journey, a family of little stars joins the search, and the little girl grows up to be the mother that the little constellations always needed, at the cost of losing her own, who is still sleeping underneath the tree on the hill. There's something unbearably heart-tugging about reading the story of a woman who sacrificed everything she loved to help others recover their own. And this is an infinitely beautiful sentiment, significantly more so than whatever space dommy-mommy garbage people project onto her. And the fact that she flies the Comet Observatory back to whatever planet the Mushroom Kingdom is on every 100 years to bring joy to the world she left behind, it hits you right in the feels, man. There aren't many times when Mario games make you feel something, but 2007 was probably the year they pulled this off the best. The best part of this story, though, is the story behind it. Game director Yoshiaki Koizumi wrote it as a personal project, staying up late at night and keeping it a secret from even Miyamoto himself. This was something that had a lot of care put into it, with Koizumi even stating that it was paced similarly to the peaks and valleys of the gameplay, and it shows tenfold. And I'm really glad that Miyamoto approved it. It didn't have to be here, but I'm really glad it is. Well, with the tears ripped out of our eyes, the only thing left to do is go out and punch Bowser into the sun and save Peach. Oh, but the universe is destabilizing because Bowser decided to be an intergalactic interloper, and now Rosalina has to pull a no-watch Ben and undo the Chronosapien time bomb known as Bowser's Galaxy Reactor, resetting the events and bringing everything back to normal, save for an increase in biodiversity. And you know what? I'd call that a 100% positive result. When the dust settles, Rosalina floats to the skies, sending the Comet Observatory back out into the wild blue yonder, giving a beautiful sense of conclusion to a game that is, unequivocally, the Wii's crown jewel.
And that was Super Mario Galaxy. There's a lot of heart behind this game, and you can really tell there was an energy to go big or go home with it, and they embraced it wholeheartedly. And for about a decade, this was the best Mario ever got. The scope was wide and grandiose, but at the same time, considering all the galaxies only had 3 or so missions, nothing ever outstayed its welcome. Sure, there was a chance that it could leave you wanting for more, but if you wanted just Super Mario Galaxy more, buddy, do I have the expansion pack sequel for you? But that's a story for another day. As for why they're making a movie out of this, well, it boils down to those 3 little words, Mario in space. It wasn't a new idea then, even less so now, but there's a certain magic to the concept. Taking this weird Italian guy out beyond the stars has a certain allure. But of course, with the proposition of movies in the air and the Pikmin and McClouds and Rob the Robots all over the place, you gotta wonder, where does it go from here? Well, I have my own theories, but I think we'll save that for another time too.
Super Luigi Galaxy!
Oh my god!